Let us pray. Guide, we beseech thee, Almighty God, members of this house, that they may wisely deliberate for the good of this country and for the glory of thy holy name. Let us say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pray, be seated. This honorable house is now in session. We continue today the debates on the budget. We have been diminished by one? Oh. Okay. We can proceed. Honorable Representative for St. Patrick West. Honorable Representative, I had been advised that you would need, because of the circumstances of having more than one ministry, you would need some time to speak on both ministries. From your estimation, about how much time would you need?
15, 20 minutes.
20 minutes would be given to you to speak on the additional ministry.
Much obliged, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give my unqualified support to the estimates of revenue and expenditure as presented in this House by the Honorable Minister for Finance and Member for St. George Northwest on Monday, 27 December 2017. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to take this opportunity to commend the Honorable Minister for Finance and his staff in the Ministry of Finance for a well-prepared and well-delivered budget statement. Mr. Speaker, the question has been asked and different answers can be given. What type of budget did the Honorable Minister of Finance present? Mr. Speaker, in my opinion, and wishing to be very simple, I would say that this was indeed a sound, practical, realistic, and responsible budget, Mr. Speaker. A budget that places the long-term sustainable development of our country over short-term political considerations. Mr. Speaker, it is quite evident that as a government, we are not prepared to sacrifice the future of our country on the altar of political expediency. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is why this budget is reflective of the existing situation, notwithstanding the fact that general elections could be imminent. You cannot respond to such when when the development of our country is more at stake, Mr. Speaker. This budget has been defined or dubbed in some quarters as the mother of all budgets. And Mr. Speaker, maybe justifiable so. Because as I've seen, the budget has indeed given birth to hope and optimism, and not a statistical abortion as some had predicted. This is a budget, Mr. Speaker, that resonates well with the vast majority of our people. And even some of our most ardent critics have admitted and are now admitting that this is indeed a very good budget. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the theme, this budget demands that we continue safeguarding our gains while continuing our progress by combining fiscal responsibility with bold adventurism in a manner typical only of this new National Party administration. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Mr. Speaker, I have been assigned the portfolio of Minister for Youth and Sports as of September of this year. And therefore, any achievement of that ministry over the years, I cannot take credit. But I must, Mr. Speaker, recognize the sterling contribution of my predecessors in that ministry. The honorable member for St. Andrew Southeast, and then the honorable member for St. Andrews Northeast, who both occupied the position as Minister for Youth and Sports for several years. Mr. Speaker, the future of our country belongs to our young people. And therefore, unless we prepare them now to take on the responsibility of governing the affairs of this country, we would be seen as abdicating our responsibility and will not be forgiven by future generations. The seeds that we plant today, Mr. Speaker, will determine the quality of fruits that we reap or we harvest tomorrow. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, spending monies on our young people cannot be considered as money wasted, as been said in some quarters, but monies well invested. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, all of the major initiatives being undertaken by the Ministry of Youth and Sports are geared towards preparing our young people to take on the mantle of leadership, Mr. Speaker, when some of us would have exited the scene, and maybe not too long from now. Mr. Speaker, it is said that to whom much is given, much is expected. As the ministry that is entrusted with the portfolio for youth development and sports, we are indeed expected to deliver in an effective and efficient manner. Mr. Speaker, I can say without any doubt that in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, we have indeed delivered in 2017 and will continue to deliver in 2018. Mr. Speaker, for the fiscal year 2017, the Ministry was given a budgetary allocation of $34.2 million. For 2018, the allocation was increased to $41.8 million, or almost a 22% increase. Mr. Speaker, I can say with some degree of confidence that the Ministry of Youth and Sports is indeed poised to take off with tremendous opportunities. The Ministry has therefore highlighted 7 strategic areas, priority areas, that will help focus its resources as well as drive the work for the period 2018 and beyond. One such area of focus, Mr. Speaker, is ensuring that the Grenadian youth are trained and certified while creating the opportunities for them to acquire the tools necessary for meaningful participation in nation building. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the Ministry focused on 3 strategic outcomes: empowering our young people, health and excellence through sports, and internal services and processes. Mr. Speaker, let us look at empowering of our young people. As I said, this is critical, because unless we empower them, they will not have the tools that will be required for nation building. Mr. Speaker, the primary source, the main method of empowering of our young people is through the program which we call the New Imani program. This program, Mr. Speaker, has engaged 3,735 young people since its inception a few years ago. And Mr. Speaker, when we look at the trainees who are part of this program, we can see that they come from a very wide spectrum of the Grenadian population. Many of them, Mr. Speaker, can be classified as school dropouts. 90% of the trainees in the program, Mr. Speaker, did not go beyond the secondary school education. But some, Mr. Speaker, do have bachelor's degree. Therefore, you can see the widespread of the people who are involved in this very important program. Mr. Speaker, the program has engaged 62% of these young people with training opportunities within the public sector, while 38% were assigned to the private sector. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note, and this is very, very, very important, that of the 3,735 young people who have been engaged in the program, 2,862, or 76.6%, have since received CVQ certification, Mr. Speaker, or in the process of receiving CVQ certification. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important achievement because it means that once you are equipped with a CVQ certification, you are now qualified to access job opportunities in any country within CARICOM. In addition, Mr. Speaker, of the total engaged in the program, 260 have received full-time employment, while 54 of them, Mr. Speaker, have received full-time scholarships or training opportunities. Mr. Speaker, we can see from these statistics that this program is indeed a very, very important one. Equipping our young people with the tools of the trade to make their contribution to nation building. Mr. Speaker, from 2013 to now, this government has spent in excess of $129 million in youth development in all aspects, at a per capita spending of $34,000 per trainee. Total, Mr. Speaker, which is about the national per capita average. As a social development poverty alleviation program, Mr. Speaker, the money program can be considered to be very effective, as it gives vulnerable and disadvantaged young people and school dropouts a second chance. And we know, Mr. Speaker, the importance of getting a second chance, because I have taught in a school where the principal got a second chance. He came to that school as a painter, working as a painter, and was given the opportunity to attend class. And ultimately, he became the principal of that same school because he was given the second chance. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I do believe that once we can give our young people that second chance, second opportunity to make an impression, a positive impression, Mr. Speaker, our world will be a better one. The program has also introduced trainees to the world of work and has provided useful experience from which opportunities for employment has emerged. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the positive outcomes from the money program, the Ministry of Youth also achieved the following objectives in 2017. Implementation of the HOPE pilot project, where over 400 trainees are beneficiaries of that program. We have also seen, Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the Youth Enterprise Initiative, and under this initiative, Mr. Speaker, $80 trainees received training in small business management. 30 small businesses, Mr. Speaker, were registered. That is to say, those who exited the program were able to establish their own small business. And 19 small business loans were approved. again, Mr. Speaker, opportunities for our young people to create their own economic space. Also, Mr. Speaker, we have seen over the past year the provision of development training to 450 youth and youth leaders through the National Youth Laser Desk, and implementation of the Fostering of Level-Headed Youth, or what we call FLY project, in Carriacou and Petit-Martinique, St. Mark, St. George South, where 65 young people, Mr. Speaker, participated in the project. In going forward, Mr. Speaker, 2018 and beyond, the priority areas earmarked for youth development include the continuation of the new Imani program and the Hope pilot. It is our intention to continue the program, Mr. Speaker, beyond what currently exists. Implementation of Empower, which is a training program, particularly, Mr. Speaker, for young men at risk, those we see on the block, dropouts, those who might be inclined to get involved in antisocial behavior, Mr. Speaker. The intention is to get them back on the right track by exposing them to opportunities for training and to develop their skills and to create their own economic space, Mr. Speaker, so they can become worthwhile and productive citizens of this country. Mr. Speaker, also for 2018, we intend to see a continuation and or implementation of a number of youth rehabilitation projects. Continuation of Project REACH, again a project designed to assist our young people who might be exposed to deviant behavior. And this project is funded by the CDB, and it is specifically, Mr. Speaker, for those who have been incarcerated and need to get back into society. This is a very, very important program, Mr. Speaker, because we know that once these young people are out there without any form of training or rehabilitation, they become a risk to society. And none of us could be secure unless, Mr. Speaker, we know that something is happening positively to these young people so they will not become a threat to society. It will also be, Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the continuation of the FLY project, as more communities will be involved in the program. And then we will see the implementation of Project ACE, Actively Committed and Empowered. Again, a project funded by the Caribbean Development Bank, which will provide training for 25 at-risk youth between the ages of 21 and 30 in the community of Mount Horn in particular. There will also be, Mr. Speaker, the continuation of the Grenada Youth Enterprise Initiative, and special emphasis will be placed on implementation of a young farmers cooperative in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Youth. Also, Mr. Speaker, the passing of national youth legislation. I do not believe that the youth policy is already enshrined in law, but that is something we have to look at. And then, Mr. Speaker, we'll also look at the continuation of training opportunities for young leaders and youth-oriented organizations facilitated through Youth Liaison Desk. Mr. Speaker, in essence, we are saying that we are not giving up on our young people. We do understand the important contribution that our young people can make and are making to national development. And if we do believe, Mr. Speaker, that the future indeed belongs to them, then we have no choice but to invest in these young people so at least they can become the leaders and movers, Mr. Speaker, of tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the division of sports within the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Mr. Speaker, 2017 was indeed a very good year for sports in Grenada, as our sportsmen and women excelled, not only locally but regionally, in various fields, Mr. Speaker. But first, permit me to extend congratulations to the winners of the Republic Bank Right Start Secondary School Football Competition. In my opinion, Mr. Speaker, I looked at all three games, and that the finals between MacDonald College and SAS was a classic one. It was excitement from the beginning to the end, but ultimately MacDonald College prevailed. I don't want to sound biased here, but MacDonald College was the ultimate winner in the boys under 19 competition, while SAS retained the championship in the girls division. And I was pleasantly surprised and that Grenada 7-day comprehensive, or we call it Montrose 7-day, whatever name you call it, school, but they emerged the winner in the under 15 boys. You know, and this is important, you know, because really it's a school you will not associate with winning the football competition. But it tells you, Mr. Speaker, that something is happening in the rural sector. Look at the schools who emerge winners. Montrose, MacDonald College, SAS. It tells you something, Mr. Speaker, about development of sports in our rural communities and the need to further develop the sporting infrastructure and the club structure, Mr. Speaker, in those areas, because they are making the mark. Not wishing to underestimate the performances of the schools in what we call the St. George's area. Mr. Speaker, still with football, Grenada, for the third time, emerged winner of the WIFA men's tournament that was held here. That was held here in Grenada, Mr. Speaker. 3 times winner of the Windward Island Football Association men's tournament. And we want to commend our footballers for winning that, Mr. Speaker. The counterpart, the women tournament, was held in St. Vincent. And again, and Grenada, our young women emerged winner of that competition as well for the first time. The 2018 CONCACAF qualifying game that was held in, I think it was in Trinidad and Tobago. Our young women were barely edged out, Mr. Speaker, on qualifying for the CONCACAF championship based on goal average. Testimony to the Right Start competition, the secondary school, because that's the nursery, Mr. Speaker, for young girls and boys to develop their sporting talents. So we were edged out. But I believe next time around, Grenada will qualify for that championship. Mr. Speaker, in athletics, (2017) was a spectacular year for athletics, as Grenada hosted the inaugural Grenada Invitational, Mr. Speaker. And this was an event, as we all know, where more than 100 of the top athletes in the world came to Grenada, little Grenada, and showcased their talents, including, as you know, Sean Merritt, Veronica Campbell-Brown, many other stars that grace the global arena of athletics. They were here in Grenada, Mr. Speaker, as part of the first invitational. Several of the athletes who took part, that is to show the quality, Mr. Speaker, several of them went on to the IAF Championship in England, where 6 eventually were medalists. But what was significant for us, Mr. Speaker, from an economic point of view, was that the event was broadcast live, globally, on ESPN. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we were able to benefit from that global exposure. And even the Grenada Tourism Authority, Mr. Speaker, reported that as a result, and I'm not saying it is 100% correlated, but as a result of that event, visitor arrivals in 2017 for that particular month was 20% more than for the previous month, Mr. Speaker. So sports tourism, Mr. Speaker, will be a big thing for Grenada, and can be a big thing once we have the appropriate infrastructure and organizational capabilities in place. Mr. Speaker, only last week, the 2018 Invitational was launched. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that it will be a bigger and better event than the 2017. Because, Mr. Speaker, some of the top performers, including Justin Gatlin, has already booked and confirmed that he will be in Grenada for the 2018 Invitational. And we know that he edged out Usain Bolt in the World Championship. So he will be here. In addition, Mr. Speaker, for the first time, Cuba will be sending a contingent of athletes to participate in the 2018 Invitational. And therefore, we can look forward to bigger and better things come April 2018, when the second Invitational will be staged. Mr. Speaker, in track and field again, OECS Championship 2017 hosted here. Grenada was second. I'm hoping that next time we could return to our rightful position of first. And we have seen in athletics, Mr. Speaker, our own Anderson Peters performing exceptionally well again. And I have no doubt that not too long from now, he will achieve his ultimate goal. In netball, Mr. Speaker, For the first time, Grenada participated in the International Netball Federation World Cup Youth Tournament that was held in Botswana. But unfortunately, our girls got beaten. But the exposure was good for them. Good exposure, Mr. Speaker. And next time around, I have no doubt they will do much better. But, Mr. Speaker, on the regional scene, no one can beat our girls because they emerged winner of the ECCB OECS Netball Tournament. It was hosted here. In cricket, Mr. Speaker, Grenada was host to the game between the Windward Island Volcanoes and the Leeward Island Hurricanes. 3 Grenadians, Mr. Speaker, were selected for the West Indies Under-19 one-day international tour of South Africa and Zimbabwe. And, Mr. Speaker, big news for Carriacou. Emmanuel Stewart has been selected to captain the West Indies Under-19 team in the ICC Youth World Championship scheduled for New Zealand. Little Carriacou, Emmanuel Stewart, captain of the West Indies Under-19 team. And we see Andrew Fletcher continuing to make his mark. In Pakistan Super League. And again, Mr. Speaker, he's out to achieve great things. In swimming, Mr. Speaker, this year, Grenada won the championship for the 3rd consecutive times. Our young swimmers, 3 times in a row, Grenada has won that championship, and overall 16 times. 16 victories OECS swimming. Notwithstanding the limited, or what I will say, inadequate conditions in which they have to practice 25-meter pool as opposed to the standard 50-meter, which we do not have. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, with such good performance, I believe they can make a reasonable request to have an Olympic-sized swimming pool here in Grenada. And Mr. Speaker, we will not forget, and we cannot forget the exploits of Damian Daniel in bodybuilding, dominating every tournament that he has participated in, Mr. Speaker. So again, we want to commend Damian Daniel for the excellent performance in the area of bodybuilding. Mr. Speaker, in terms of achievements of the Ministry of, or the Division of Sports in 2017, the completion of the rehabilitation of the Cuthbert Peters Park and the 4 recreation ground, that was one of the achievements. We have also seen, Mr. Speaker, improved maintenance work at Progress Park, Queen's Park Ground 2, Montrouge and La Sagesse grounds. We have seen in 2017 the introduction of coaching programs in a number of our schools and communities. The successful planning and hosting and participation in regional and international games like the Grenada Invitational, which I mentioned before, Whitsuntide Invitational, OECS Track and Field Championship, and many other programs that were undertaken in 2017. Mr. Speaker, for 2018, the work program of the Division of Sports will include refurbishment and lighting of La Sagesse and the Grenada National Stadium. And on this one, Mr. Speaker, just let me say a few words. The lighting of the stadium. The funding is already available. Contract signed. It's all a matter now of doing the installation of the lights. But this, Mr. Speaker, will be a precondition, a prerequisite for any night games to take place in the stadium. And Grenada has put in a bid to host games in the Women's World Cup tournament scheduled for 2018 here in the Caribbean. And to host any of those games, Mr. Speaker, we have to have a lighted stadium. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we'll be moving speedily to ensure that the National Stadium will be lighted, so at least we can host games in that tournament. So, Mr. Speaker, 2018 is shaping up to be a big year, very big year for sports in Grenada, with the 2018 Invitational and the possibility of hosting games in the Women's Tournament that will be taking place later on in the year. We will continue with the pitch management and maintenance of the major cricket facilities like the 4, Roy St. John, Queen's Park, Plains, Victoria, Las Ages, and Cuthbert Peters Park. We will continue with the sports development programs that we have initiated in our various schools and communities. And, Mr. Speaker, we will establish an operating manual for policies and procedures for the division of sports. Again, Mr. Speaker, this is critical because we have seen certain developments, certain activities that may not be compatible with the objectives of the Ministry of Sports. And therefore, we want to ensure that we have a manual that will detail exactly how we see sporting activities going on. For example, our collaboration with the Ministry of Education with regard to some of the sporting activities, like the Rise Start competition. There must be some element of collaboration that will ensure that whatever takes place is consistent with our policies and programs. And also, Mr. Speaker, we look at expanding the elite athlete program, as well as I said before, reviewing our national sports policy. Mr. Speaker, this concludes my presentation on the Ministry of Youth and Sports. How much, Mr. Speaker, what's the time? How much do you have? About an hour? No? About an hour more?
About that.
About that? Great. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I've also been entrusted with the responsibility of presenting the report for the Ministry of Education and Human Resource Development. But before I do that, Mr. Speaker, I would like to turn to my constituency. And Mr. Speaker, first of all, I would like to say thanks to my constituents of St. Patrick West for giving me the opportunity to serve them in the Parliament of this country for yet another term, and to be the representative for almost 14 years, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to working with them so at least we can continue the significant development agenda, continue with the major plans and programs that we do have that can transform the economic and social landscape not only of the constituency of St. Patrick West, but the parish of St. Patrick as a whole, Mr. Speaker, Because when it comes to development, it is difficult to distinguish St. Patrick East from St. Patrick West. We look at the parish of St. Patrick, Mr. Speaker. We have been designated one of the poorest parishes in Grenada, but I am quite confident that 5 years from now, we will be almost at the top. And I would like to pull my dear sister along with us. We're moving together, Mr. Speaker, and part of the Western Corridor. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding challenges that we have faced and continue to face, I can say without any doubt that we have delivered much in the constituency of St. Patrick West over the past year, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to thank in advance our Prime Minister and Minister for Finance for making the resources available. Without such resources, Mr. Speaker, we could not do much in the constituency. So I want to express thanks, Mr. Speaker, to the Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I want to start with the whole issue of human resource, education. Because as I've said before, Mr. Speaker, there's a positive link between education or human resource and national development. And unless we put money into education, development of a human resource, Mr. Speaker, our national development could be restricted. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, I wish to state that for us in St. Patrick West, for 2017, over $109,000 was spent in assisting our students to obtain an education. That included, Mr. Speaker, the payment of fees for CXE examinations, assistance for them to attend SGU, Mr. Speaker, online education, Mr. Speaker. Those who cannot afford to pay the $3,000, $4,000, that was paid for them, Mr. Speaker, by the government. And transportation allowance assistance. Many of our students who attend SGU, TAMCC, without the assistance given to them to pay for the transportation, Mr. Speaker, they would not be able to attend. And therefore, high commendation must be given to this government for assisting our students to obtain an education. Mr. Speaker, in addition, a number of students in the constituency received full-time scholarships to undertake higher education, not only in the region or locally, but abroad, but externally. And I want to make this point, Mr. Speaker. I want to make this point because we know that the majority of our young people who receive those scholarships could not or cannot afford to pay for their education. And in my village alone, Mali Lamud, Mr. Speaker, in that village alone, there are 4 young ladies. 4 young ladies have been awarded scholarships to pursue studies in the field of medicine. So it means that in 5 years' time, Mr. Speaker, in this tiny village, you will have 4 + 1, 5 medical doctors, Mr. Speaker, in a village that is no bigger, not have more than 200 people. Something that is unheard of. There's so many of our young people being given the opportunity to become qualified in areas like medicine, engineering, and other fields of specialization, thanks, Mr. Speaker, to this new National Party government and its concern for the poor and vulnerable people, Mr. Speaker, in our society. Mr. Speaker, under the Necessitas Fund, $44,000, Mr. Speaker, was spent assisting over 40 persons who could not afford, some of them cannot afford, to buy some of the basic things in life. Government has come to their assistance. Under the Special Project Fund, Mr. Speaker, and I must again commend the Minister for Finance for establishing the Special Project Fund, because it has proven to be a very effective means of delivering services, Mr. Speaker, to our people, particularly in the rural areas. Very effective mechanism, Mr. Speaker, because this is a fund that reaches out to the ordinary people, the poor people. Give them a job. Give them the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, that otherwise they would not have obtained. And in my constituency alone, Mr. Speaker, over $406,000 was spent on a special project to undertake a number of small initiatives. Time will not allow me to elaborate on all of the initiatives undertaken under the Special Project Fund, Mr. Speaker. But I can do say that job opportunities were created. The lives of our people have improved, the quality of life, access to homes, Mr. Speaker, footpaths, retaining walls, Mr. Speaker. All of these contribute in one way or the other to improving the quality of life of our people, Mr. Speaker. And we cannot underestimate the significance of this fund and the contribution that it has made to the constituency of St. Patrick West. Mr. Speaker, in addition, the Ministry of Works, and again I must commend the Minister for his support. A number of roads were built, constructed in the constituency. Again, I will not elaborate, but in excess of $700,000, Mr. Speaker, on roads. Access roads, Mr. Some of the roads, Mr. Speaker, were not motorable for more than 80 years. There's one road in particular I want to make mention of, Mr. Speaker. We used to call it the Tulumbe Road. For 85 years, no traffic on that road. Now Tulumbe Road is almost a highway. And we have renamed that road, Mr. Speaker, in honor of Grenada's first and only international, or I don't say international, someone who never played netball at a professional level. The first person to do so, Mr. Speaker, from St. Patrick. First professional netball player, Latisha Keto, and that road was renamed in our honor, Mr. Speaker. Again, it tells you of our concern for the development of the infrastructure in that constituency. Mr. Speaker, much more to come, and much more. The people of Davi, Mr. Speaker, they have been calling for lockers to safeguard, to protect their equipment. They have received the lockers, Mr. Speaker, and washroom, thanks to this new National Party administration and the Basic Need Trust Fund. So now they do not have to worry about the engines and equipment being stolen, because they do have the lockers. And we will move, Mr. Speaker, into a second phase to ensure that eventually cold storage facilities will be installed, so at least they can store the fish as well, Mr. Speaker. We have seen the fencing of the Chantimel playing field. The Montridge playing field, Mr. Speaker, is now under a program of upgrading, Mr. Speaker. The people of Chantimel, for years they have been clamoring for a bus shelter. thanks to this administration, they do have a bus shelter in the main junction, Mr. Speaker, and it's something that we have to grant them. They have struggled for it, and now they got it. And I want to thank the legal department, the former Attorney General, because he was very instrumental in going through the legal processes, because there was stiff opposition to that bus shed being constructed. But the Attorney General spent some time, Mr. Speaker, with us, and we were able to get the bus shelter. So I cannot forget his contribution in that regard, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I spoke about the Imani program as a whole. But in the constituency of St. Patrick West, we have 187 persons who are presently enrolled under the program, Mr. Speaker. 20 persons so far have received permanent employment. Again, Mr. Speaker, as I said, the program is establishing the framework. It is creating the platform from which young people can move on and up. That is why we have to give our full support to a program like the New Imani program, Mr. Speaker. And 5 persons have also received full-time scholarship under the program. And 122 out of the 187 have received their CVQs. The significance, Mr. Speaker, of that program. Mr. Speaker, under the SEED program, and my colleague minister who's responsible for SEED, she's always taunting me that I'm getting too much. I'm getting too much seed. But Mr. Speaker, the more seed you plant, the more fruits you might get. So the more seed I get, the more fruits I will eat. So Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister, give us more seed. We are doing well. We are doing well, I must indeed say. I do not want to give you figures because other constituencies might become a bit envious. But again, we are doing well because I have a seed officer who is hardworking, very dynamic, and she is primarily responsible for all of the seed that we got so far. And I want to give her some special commendation for what we have achieved under the seed program, Mr. Speaker. Uniform assistance. As we have said before, Mr. Speaker, while we support the free school book program, and we will continue with that program, that's under another ministry, but we also believe that to fully equip a child for school, that child will need not only the books, but you must give them clothing, Mr. Speaker. You must give them transport allowance, Mr. Speaker. And that is why I'm saying that our program to assist our children is a far more comprehensive program, Mr. Speaker, than what is being given by the other government. Because while they focus only on the books, and books not only for children who could afford the books, Mr. Speaker, they neglect to give those who cannot afford a meal in the morning, those who cannot afford a shoe. They did not give them, they did not give them that assistance. This government, Mr. Speaker, in addition to the books, is giving transport allowance, uniform allowance, and all other allowance, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the poor and vulnerable students in our country can afford an education, Mr. Speaker. And that is the big difference. In the bushing program, Mr. Speaker, which we know is a seasonal program, but one that is significant for us in the rural communities because our people depend on the bushing for a source of income, in addition to being an environmentally friendly activity. And here, Mr. Speaker, for this year, over $1,380,000, Mr. Speaker, have been expended under the bushing program, or will be for this year, and over 2,290, Mr. Speaker, of our people will receive some form of short-term employment. Again, Mr. Speaker, this is important, because this is money that will be circulating in the rural economy. And once money is circulating in the rural economy, Mr. Speaker, you know that you have a sustainable economy. Because when poor people get money, they cannot afford to spend it, they can't afford to save it, they spend everything. And it's more money in circulation through the multiplier effect. So the more we can spend, Mr. Speaker, in the rural economy, the greater will be the level of circulation through the multiplier impact. in the rural economy. So more for the rural economy, Mr. Speaker, and not less. Mr. Speaker, in the housing program, 105 persons, Mr. Speaker, were approved for housing assistance. However, Mr. Speaker, only 75 received, and we have 30 on the waiting list. And they are on the waiting list not because the government does not have the resources. It is because the suppliers cannot provide enough materials, Mr. Speaker. There is always a shortage, and that is creating a backlog. So those who have not received materials, we want them to understand that it is not the fault of the government, but the limitation of the suppliers in bringing in enough materials so at least there could be speedy disbursement. And Mr. Speaker, we are hoping that this could be addressed in the not too distant future because it is creating some form of discomfort to those who are waiting for this material. Mr. Speaker, yesterday my colleague from St. Patrick East spoke about that major project in the north, and again, I do not want to separate St. Patrick East and West because the project is located geographically it is located in the east, but demographically it serves the whole of St. Patrick. And therefore I will not make any distinction as to where it is east or west. That project, Mr. Speaker, a project that was condemned, a project that the NDC government said was too big for St. Patrick, is now making the greatest impact, Mr. Speaker, not only in St. Patrick, but in Grenada as a whole. The initial intent, Mr. Speaker, was to create a breakwater to provide effective protection against coastal erosion at lower Sauteurs. To date, Mr. Speaker, this government has spent in excess of $4 million to construct 1,500 feet of the breakwater. But in order to provide even more effective protection to the coastal area and to give a calmer environment for the fisher folks, it has been agreed that the breakwater will extend for another 170 feet. That will cost in excess of $1.8 million, Mr. Speaker. So we're talking about $6.4 million to construct that breakwater. And again, Mr. Speaker, let me commend the Minister for Finance, because I recall when he visited the area and he saw the extent of the erosion that was taking place and the threat to existing buildings and property, he came back and said, we have to find the money to do that project, Mr. Speaker. And he was able to use his magic wand and come up with the money to the breakwater. So for those who say that the breakwater has been financed from some external sources, they are dead wrong. The financing is 100% local financing, Mr. Speaker. 100% local financing. That's a great sacrifice, but a needed sacrifice, Mr. Speaker, because we do understand the consequences that would have flown as a result of not having that project. But not only has the breakwater provided that effective level of protection, but it has created, Mr. Speaker, what we now call the wonder of the north. A beautiful beach, one of the most beautiful and most used recreational area. We call it the Breakwater Beach, or whatever name they call it. And you know what? I listened to an advertisement recently, These guys, they condemn the breakwater. They say it is a mud jetty. They say it was too big for St. Patrick. And you know they are the first to organize fundraising activity on the breakwater? Can you imagine that? The same guys who condemn the project, they are the first to organize major fundraising. All of a sudden, you see lack of vision? Lack of vision, Mr. Speaker, is something that these guys, they don't have vision. They have the vision now to see that it exists, but they did not have the vision to contemplate the creation of what they know and want to enjoy. And Mr. Speaker, I cannot leave out the Minister for Works, because without his expertise, without his guidance, Mr. Speaker, his technical guidance, the project would not have come on stream. So both the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Works, Mr. Speaker, I must indeed say, must be given maximum praise for that project that now exists. But Mr. Speaker, as we have said before, this is only the first phase. What we have created there is phase one. The ultimate objective, Mr. Speaker, is to create a world-class yacht marina in Sates that will create hundreds of jobs for the people, Mr. Speaker, that will transform the northern part of Grenada commercially, economically, Mr. Speaker, and otherwise. That project, again, and we must know that, the Exim Bank of China had agreed to provide the financing for the project, $150 million. They were so convinced of the viability of the project that they allowed one of their local companies to even start to go ahead and do work to create that marina, Mr. Speaker, without the project being formally approved. That was the level of confidence that the government of China and the Exim Bank showed. But when the NDC government came in 2007, 2008, they abandoned the project, and over $2 million that was spent, Mr. Speaker, just went down the drain. Lack of vision, Mr. Speaker. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But Mr. Speaker, as long as this NNP government is in office, the people will not perish, because we have a leader and we have a team with a vision to understand what is necessary for the development of our country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a lot to be said, but finally I want to make mention of another major initiative that will be coming to St. Patrick. Again, not west, east or west, but St. Patrick. Mr. Speaker, we have said over and over, and I have mentioned it here, the unemployment level among our young people is still unacceptable, although we know that it has dropped. Overall, the unemployment level has dropped to 24%. But still among our young people, it is too high. And therefore, this government has been looking at creative ways of reducing the level of unemployment, especially among our young people in the rural communities. And I want to make mention here, Mr. Speaker, of one project that will be coming on stream very soon to create the much needed employment opportunities for the people of St. Patrick and maybe for Grenada as a whole. Mr. Speaker, recently, this government, again under the leadership of our Prime Minister, has taken a very bold decision. Because this offer that I'm talking about was made to the previous NDC administration, and in the lack of vision, they did not accept it. They did not follow through on it. And we wonder why unemployment was so high during the period of the NDC administration. This government has taken the bold decision to purchase a 3-story furniture factory building owned by the McLeish family and mortgaged to the Grenada Development Bank. And it has been agreed, Mr. Speaker, that this furniture factory that is located in the Montreat-Snellal area will be transformed into a national center for skills training of our young people, Mr. Speaker. A national center. But even more, it will be used as a national center for the production and repair of all furniture required in our schools throughout Grenada, Mr. Speaker. And we know that the demand for school furniture is a $1 million plus business. Therefore, we are looking at a productive enterprise and not one that will be dependent on government subsistence, Mr. Speaker. It will be self-sustaining. And we are soon to begin the training program where over 60 young people will be trained in anticipation of some of them getting employment in that facility once it begins early next year. This is the government with vision, Mr. Speaker. A government that is concerned about the welfare of our people, the poor and vulnerable, and the unemployed. The potential spin-off, Mr. Speaker, is great because we are talking about furniture making for schools, we're talking about logging, we're talking about transportation, you're talking about actual production, you're talking about marketing. So many activities, so many spin-offs, Mr. Speaker, from an activity like that. I anticipate hundreds of jobs, but I do not want to be selfish. The center will not be only for St. Patrick, it will be a national training center. So anyone from any part of Grenada wishing to be trained in the modern art of furniture making will be able to come to that center right in Montreal and be trained, Mr. Speaker. That is what I call a government of vision, a government that understands the need to create meaningful opportunities for young people. So when we combine that, Mr. Speaker, with all of the employment opportunities that the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance announced in his budget statement, when we put all of that together, Mr. Speaker, in a year or two from now, I can see unemployment in Grenada falling below the 20% mark. Far below the 20% mark, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and those who are talking about give them a chance and they have no plan, they have no vision. We are not, Mr. Speaker, we are not concerned about chance, we are concerned about actual activities, Mr. Speaker, doing things, getting work done, so at least our people could receive much benefits. Mr. Speaker, time is running out, and I've been also given the responsibility to present on behalf of the Ministry of Education, and I do not want to do them any injustice because that's the ministry I was in charge of for the past 4.5 years. But, Mr. Speaker, in anticipation of the limited time, it was agreed that I will speak on the ministry proper, and my colleague from the representative from St. George South will look at some of the performance of the statutory bodies which fall under the ambit of the Ministry of Education. So she will look at, she will report on the TMRSO Community College, the National Accreditation Board, and the National Training Agency. And I will just focus, Mr. Speaker, on the central ministry. Mr. Speaker, I am extremely pleased to highlight some of the ministry's most significant achievements for 2017. And these include, Mr. Speaker, schools infrastructure, teacher training, scholarship awards, incentives to our teachers, the education management information system that has been implemented, or ICT infusion, and institutional strengthening of the Ministry of Education. Mr. Speaker, as was said before, there is a very strong positive correlation between human resource development and national development. That, Mr. Speaker, is well established, well known. And therefore, if we are to ensure national development, we must, Mr. Speaker, invest in our human resource. That is critical. There is no two-way about it, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, investing in our human resource also requires that we provide the enabling environment, the physical environment in which our teachers must teach and our students must learn. Because if the environment is not conducive, Mr. Speaker, we know that there will not be any effective teaching or learning process taking place, Mr. Speaker. And that is why this government is placing a lot of emphasis on the improvement of the physical infrastructure of our schools to make the environment a friendlier one and more conducive one, Mr. Speaker. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that with much needed assistance from participating agencies such as the BNTF, OPEC Fund, OFID, and the Caribbean Development Bank, we were able to deliver on our promise as it relates to providing a more enabling environment for teaching and learning. For example, Mr. Speaker, students at St. Patrick Anglican Primary School, St. Mary's RC, St. Dominic's RC Primary, Paraclete Government, Montgomery's Anglican have all now returned to fully refurbished school environment, Mr. Speaker. And that is something that is important, because as I said, we cannot ignore that. Work, Mr. Speaker, has also commenced on the refurbishment of the St. Teresa's RC preschool in Vincent and the building of a brand new facility for a Holy Cross RC school at Munich. In addition, Mr. Speaker, works have been completed at the St. George's Methodist and the Constantine Methodist schools. Mr. Speaker, relocation facilities were completed for Bishop's College in Carriacou, and work on the upgrading of that school is expected to commence early next year. To date, Mr. Speaker, in addition to those major works, over $500,000 have been expended on routine maintenance of our educational facilities. And here I must make mention again, Mr. Speaker, to the contributions being made by the respective parliamentary representatives out of the special project funds, because not all of this come from the central government fund, but from the constituency funds, where they had to use those funds to assist in terms of strategic interventions when necessary to ensure that the environment is conducive. I know that some MPs have used the special project fund to buy stoves, refrigerators, do repairs to schools, because at times you can't wait on the central government bureaucracy to provide those facilities, and they must be commended, Mr. Speaker, for their contribution. Mr. Speaker, water dripping. Mr. Speaker, over the 4-year period that we have been in office, in excess of $35 million have been spent on school rehabilitation, Mr. Speaker, a major achievement that we cannot ignore. Professional development of our teachers, Mr. Speaker, is also critical, because to deliver an effective teaching program, you must have qualified teachers. And I'm pleased to state, Mr. Speaker, that in 2017, a total of 25 teachers were selected and are now pursuing a 2-year training program in early childhood education at the T.A. Marisho Community College. These teachers, Mr. Speaker, will receive their salaries for the duration of their study leave, and in most instances, a replacement in their respective school is also being facilitated. Within the past 4 years, Mr. Speaker, provisions were made for a total of 143 teachers to pursue full-time studies at the Teacher Education Department of the T.A. Marisho Community College. This training, Mr. Speaker, included 67 in primary education, 58 in secondary education, and 25 in early childhood education. The total expended for the past 4 years by way of salaries for teachers whilst on full-time training through this medium was approximately $7 million, Mr. Speaker. In addition, a significant number of teachers are now given time release to pursue further studies at St. George's University. Scholarship award, Mr. Speaker. In 2007, a total of 207 scholarships, full-time scholarships, Mr. Speaker, have been awarded to our students at an approximate cost of over $48 million. Mr. Speaker, a lot of money for the scholarship, the most been awarded for any year so far in our history of awarded scholarship, Mr. Speaker. In terms of the awarding agencies or those who supported, St. George's University, Mr. Speaker, has almost 97 supporting those awards. Government of China contributed 27, Cuba 12, then we had 5 island scholarships. And then we have what we call the economic cost that this government must bear for some of our students at UE. And the economic cost, Mr. Speaker, will translate to about 80% of the tuition fee, which is a lot of money for us. But we have to do it, Mr. Speaker. And that is a contribution that we cannot ignore. The economic cost bursary for our students at those institutions, Mr. Speaker. When we make a comparison between what was granted between 2008 and 12 and 2013 to now, between 2008 to 2012, Mr. Speaker, you had 690 scholarships awarded at an approximate cost of $73 million, compared to 930, Mr. Speaker, at an approximate cost of $185 million between 2013 and 2017, Mr. Speaker. You can see what we are doing in terms of providing scholarships, Mr. Speaker, and opportunities. Just about 5-10 more minutes, and that could wrap up. Regularization, Mr. Speaker, about 10 minutes?
You have 15 minutes.
15 minutes, of course. Mr. Speaker, teacher incentives. Again, we cannot ignore what teachers receive in addition to their regular salary, what we call incentive allowances to teachers. And in 2007, Mr. Speaker, a total of $470,000, Mr. Speaker, were paid out in the form of incentive allowances to our teachers, in allowances alone, Mr. Speaker. Regularization. Mr. Speaker, this government inherited an education system where over 600 of our teachers were classified as temporary for various reasons. Many of these teachers, Mr. Speaker, were faced with challenges, including the anxiety due to lack of tenure and the ability to access funds for investment. And many of them could not access educational opportunities or opportunities to further their education, Mr. Speaker, because they were branded as temporary. Could not go to the bank. To date, Mr. Speaker, this administration has regularized the status of over 275 teachers, Mr. Speaker. They have received what we call definitive appointments in the system. And yet, Mr. Speaker, we have more to come. More to come. Very soon, another 85 will be regularized in addition to 9 physical education teachers, Mr. Speaker. This is the government that cares about our teachers. The previous government, they were there. Some of them were temporary in the system for over 15 years. And they did nothing, Mr. Speaker, nothing to regularize. This government has seen it fit to regularize those teachers' status, and we will continue to regularize until, ultimately, when they get employment in the service, it will be through definitive appointments. So we don't have to go through this temporary system anymore, Mr. Speaker. That is the ultimate policy in terms of moving forward, where there will be definitive appointments and not this temporary thing and then waiting to be regularized. Mr. Speaker, Education Information Management System. Mr. Speaker, when we took over the Ministry of Education, if you wanted to get information on a teacher or a student, that would take you almost a day or a week, because you had to go through files. Maybe some files are old as 10, 15 years, dusty. Communication between the ministry and the schools, very poor. And we thought it fit, Mr. Speaker, to modernize the system of communication and information flow within the ministry. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, with the assistance of UNESCO, this government piloted in 2015 what we call an education management information system, where, Mr. Speaker, information, instead of being in a written format on paper, is now being stored in a digital format. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the records of our teachers and students, when this pilot project is complete and when the entire project is complete, will be accessible through this digital format. So a student entering a school today, you'll be able to track that child's performance up to the date that the child exits tertiary institution at the touch of a button, Mr. Speaker. Similarly, for the teachers, their performance and their attendance record, everything, Mr. Speaker, will be in a digital format. So we understand the level of efficiency, the higher level of efficiency that will be gained through the use of this, using this new platform for information storage and retrieval in the Ministry of Education, Mr. Speaker. To date, Mr. Speaker, most of the records for the teachers are on that platform, and we are now piloting with 9 schools the records for students. So ultimately, Mr. Speaker, all of the records for students and teachers will be in that digital format, and therefore accessing, retrieving, communication will be much simpler and more efficient, Mr. Speaker. Another aspect of the work program of the ministry that was initiated in 2017 and which will continue is that of institutional strengthening, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, CARICAD, in collaboration with the Department of Public Administration and the Ministry of Education, carried out a functional review of 22 key positions within 4 of the ministry's departments during 2017. Revised job descriptions and recommendations have since been received, and implementation of those, Mr. Speaker, has begun. Additionally, 3 key curriculum officers posts were filled this year, namely one for science, modern language, and physical education. A creative arts officer, a speech therapist, and an additional counselor were also added to the ministry staff in 2017. Mr. Speaker, we need to boost up we have to fill those positions, because if they are not, it means that we will not be delivering in an effective and efficient manner what we ought to deliver to our students, ultimately at our schools. Mr. Speaker, in moving forward, the ministry has been provided with a budget to carry on its work program for 2018, Mr. Speaker. The ministry has been provided with a budget of $115 $1,311,905 in 2018 as compared to the 2017 allocation of $104,023,334, or 1.1% increase. In essence, there's a slight increase, Mr. Speaker, but nevertheless, sometimes it's not so much the quantity that is involved, but the quality of work. And if we are moving into the era of ICT, the digital age, Mr. Speaker, it means that efficiency gains could be realized through that medium rather than through additional manpower, Mr. Speaker, although we cannot easily substitute one for the other. But with ICT infusion, we do expect higher levels of efficiency and output, and not really reflected in higher expenditure levels, Mr. Speaker. The main priorities for the ministry in 2018, Mr. Speaker: 1, improving literacy and numeracy. Mr. Speaker, this is a burning issue, not only in Grenada, but this is a regional problem, that our students are not doing very well in these two critical subjects. And the results of the recent examinations, whether it was CAPE, CSEC, CPA, all reveal a level of deficiency, Mr. Speaker, in these two critical areas. And this must be addressed, because these are the two key pillars on which the education system rests. And unless these pillars are strengthened, Mr. Speaker, we will not have a very sound educational system, and that will translate, Mr. Speaker, into a not very sound economic system, Mr. Speaker. So emphasis must be given to improving, and there are a number of initiatives, Mr. Speaker, listed here to ensure that we improve literacy and numeracy. Another area, Mr. Speaker, is the human resource development. Again, exposing more of our young people to educational opportunities through scholarships, through training initiatives, Mr. Speaker. That is a key recommendation in moving forward. It means that in 2018 we will see more scholarship based on the initiatives that will be undertaken by the scholarship desk. We will see more scholarships being made available for our students, our people, so at least they could improve themselves, get higher education, and even improve their skill sets. Because in moving forward, it is not just focusing on the pure academic, Mr. Speaker, but we have to focus on technical and vocational education as well, although the two cannot be separated, because without a good foundation in maths, you cannot be a good draftsman or anything. So we must ensure that it's a single track with two major components on it, Mr. Speaker. Academic, technical, and vocational, single track, but two components. Very critical in moving forward. And the continuation of our program of improving the infrastructure of our schools. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, I wish to make note of the Grenada Education Enhancement Project, which is funded by the Caribbean Development Bank. And much was said about this program before in this house and in other places. The intention is to rebuild a number of secondary schools and upgrade existing ones. Bishop's College, Mr. Speaker, as I said before, the design works already advanced, and we should see the actual construction begin sometime next year. Seventh-day Adventists, the Grenada Seventh-day Adventist Comprehensive School, again, that should be ready to start any time from now, because I know the design work is complete as well. The relocation of the St. Andrew's Anglican Primary School. Well, I do not want to say relocation, Mr. Speaker, because the consultancy, I am not aware of the report of the consultant in terms of the feasibility of building the school on the existing site or relocating, but that is something, Mr. Speaker, that ought to be done, because we know that the school is in a dilapidated condition. I know that it is not conducive for learning, it's not conducive for teaching, and therefore something ought to be done, either in terms of relocation or in terms of building on the existing site. And we must not forget, Mr. Speaker, the St. Mark's Secondary School. Yes, they had a very good administrative building, but when you look at the actual classroom, Mr. Speaker, it is in bad shape. And in moving forward, we have to take on board building some new classroom blocks for the St. Mark's Secondary School, and the St. Martin's Secondary School seems to have a perennial problem. This, Mr. Speaker, must be addressed in moving forward, in addition to the number of other schools that we have done. So, Mr. Speaker, as I said, my colleague, when she comes this afternoon, she will present on the statutory bodies, because as you would have seen, time would not have allowed me to look at TAMCC, the National Training Agency, and the Accreditation Board. In wrapping up, Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity once again to express my thanks and gratitude. As I said, Mr. Speaker, in everything we do, we have to put God first, and I want to thank him for his continued blessings. To my constituents of St. Patrick West, some of them who were here today, I want to say thank you very much for your support. I look forward to a continuation of that support that you have given to me over the past years. To the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, my cabinet colleagues, I want to say thank you very much for your support. To the Permanent Secretary and staff of the Ministry of Education, I want to say thank you for the 4.5 years I was the Minister of Education. I said before, and I want to repeat here, that the support I got from that ministry was unsurpassed, and it will long remain with me as one of the better ministries I've worked with in terms of the relationship between myself and the staff. The Permanent Secretary and the Ministry of Youth and Sports, I want to thank you very much for welcoming me, and I'm looking forward to that same cordial working relationship that I enjoyed at the Ministry of Education. To all members of staff in my constituency, seed officer, housing officer, debushing officer, Imani officer, everyone. My personal assistant, I want to say thank you very much for the support you have given to me. To my friends, relatives, family members, thanks for your support. To you, Mr. Speaker, and your staff, I want to thank you for the efficient way in which you conduct the affairs of the House. I really enjoy the combination of seriousness and humor, injection of humor sometimes. I think it makes for relief of some little boredom that could exist sometimes. I think you're doing a good job, Mr. Speaker. I really want to thank you for that. And to men of goodwill, wherever you may exist, I say thanks for sharing that universal consciousness that makes us one, regardless of race, color, religion, or social status. We all belong to the community of man. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you, Honourable Representative for St. Patrick West. Honourable Representative for the Tongue of St. George.
Mr. Speaker, good morning, and I rise to give full and unequivocal support to the budget as presented. Mr. Speaker, I also would like to take this opportunity to speak about the health or healthcare, Ministry of Health, as well as my constituency. Mr. Speaker, I will speak firstly of health. Mr. Speaker, health is not just about hospital and facilities. It is also about the individual. We all have our part to play in ensuring that our children, family members, friends, and those in our care in general are looked after. We also have a responsibility to ourselves and our families to take care of ourselves while engaging or by engaging in healthy lifestyles, watching what we eat, how much alcohol we consume, and getting the right exercise. These are all part and parcels of healthcare in Grenada. Mr. Speaker, the health situation in Grenada continues to be dynamic as the Ministry of Health continues to implement activities aimed at achieving strategic goals and objectives to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of service delivery and quality of care offered to our citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and pt1. The sector continues to face many challenges, Mr. Speaker, including increased requests for services linked to non-communicable diseases, for which cancer continues to be the leading cause of death in Grenada. Health, or the Ministry of Health, is unique in the fact that it is a never-ending struggle of prevention, cure, and care that will ultimately fail. Yes, fail, as we are all mortal beings, and as such, at some point, we will be called to the great beyond, and no man or man-made system can prevent this. This, however, must not be used as an excuse for shortfalls, but as motivation to always do better, to care and to ensure that care is offered to all and that the best care possible. That it is not just about the budget or the facilities and the equipment, but most importantly, the people involved in the deliverance of health care. You see, Mr. Speaker, I have always believed that give me good doctors and nurses intense in a field, and we can do more than with the best facilities if we do not have good people running our facilities. Notwithstanding the many challenges and issues which impact the delivery of care, the Ministry has been steadfast in the optimization of available human and financial resources to deliver health care to citizens across 6 key areas, which are as follows: health infrastructure development, 1. 2. Health financing, 3. Health service delivery, 4. Leadership and governance, 5. Medical products and technology, and 6. Health information systems. In this regard, the Ministry acknowledges that although there have been some notable achievements during the period, services must be continuously improved to meet the needs of the citizens. We must always take into consideration the fact that we are mortal beings, 1, and 2, the needs and threats to our population are constantly, Mr. Speaker, constantly changing. The following highlights the areas of achievement of the Ministry of Health, Social Security, and International Business. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry was allocated a very large budget this year, for which we are most grateful. The areas that we have focused on, as I have mentioned, health infrastructure, in keeping with the stated objectives to modernize health infrastructure, the Ministry in 2017 committed resources from both local funds and donor agencies to improving health infrastructure in Grenada. Investments in this regard were made through the following initiatives: healthcare facilities across the sector. 1. The General Hospital. Second phase of General Hospital infrastructure. Work continues on the second phase of the General Hospital with grant funds from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The total cost of the project is EC $13 million. The second phase is expected to house A&E, hospital administration, diagnostics, pharmacy, and outpatient services. The work is ongoing and the facility is expected to be commissioned the first quarter of 2018. Additional work, Mr. Speaker, on the General Hospital and other infrastructural work completed during the period included as follows: chemotherapy mixing chamber was commissioned and is now operational effective October 19th, 2017. Mr. Speaker, central air-conditioned unit work has commenced on the AC unit for the first phase to improve the facilities at the operating theatre and ICU, expected to be completed by December 2017. Mr. Speaker, oncology unit was relocated, laundry services upgraded, and government has committed to repair and refurbish the hospital laundry services. Children's ward, Mr. Speaker, 6 to 15 years, work is in progress. The cost of repairs estimated to be 117,000 EC dollars. Other healthcare facilities, Mr. Speaker, Princess Royal, retrofit of doctors' quarters, contract signed and work commenced November 2017. Estimated cost 97,000 EC dollars. Additional work on this facility is expected to commence in 2018 under the Smart Healthcare Project through DFID. Richmond Hill Institution and Mount Gay Hospital, $245,000, specifically windows, chiller unit, remedial works, and equipment, invested in critical upgrades to enhance the quality of care afforded to the patients there. Princess Alice Hospital, Mr. Speaker, structural upgrades under the Smart Healthcare Facilities, Phase 2, retrofitting of the enhanced climate change resilience and to minimize the impact of the facility on the environment by reducing the use of water and electricity. Refurbishment of health centers and medical stations. Government is estimated to invest approximately $400,000 to enhance the infrastructure and prepare facilities for the networking with respect to the NTRC project and electronic medical records. Mr. Speaker, Gov Health Centre. Following the signature of the grant agreement between the Government of Grenada and the European Union in January of 2017, the tender for award of contract was published in October 2017, and the Ministry anticipates completion of the tender process by December 2017 in collaboration with the Ministry of Works, and to award that contract for the commencement of construction by March 2018. The Gov Health Centre is expected to be a key component to the delivery of primary healthcare services to the residents of St. John's, St. Mark's, and St. Patrick's, and to support the implementation of the National Health Insurance. Mr. Speaker, health financing. Key priorities have been identified under the 2017 budget for health financing, including health insurance, billing and admission, and cost recovery. The National Health Insurance, Mr. Speaker, continues to demonstrate commitment to the implementation. The government continues to demonstrate commitment to the implementation of the National Health Insurance and its intention to provide universal protection for citizens against what I would determine as catastrophic expenditure that may result when accessing health care, and to enhance the quality of health services offered to our citizens. Mr. Speaker, the National Health Insurance seeks to ensure that we adhere to the primary principle of the Ministry of Health in Grenada, and that is that healthcare in Grenada must be accessible and affordable to all. And it has not been in the past. In the past, there are instances, many instances, where access is based on those who can afford. And where those who cannot afford, access is sometimes delayed. And healthcare, like justice, in most cases, when delayed, is denied. Mr. Speaker, the NHI Secretariat located at the National Insurance Commercial Complex was launched on October 31st. The Secretariat, in collaboration with the University of the West Indies and other developmental partners, including UNDP and Pan American Health Organization, will conduct the requisite analysis to develop the framework for the implementation of national health insurance in Grenada. Mr. Speaker, I have heard some say that national health insurance is a political ploy, that we should take more time. I say to this that this is nonsense, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if not now for national health insurance, when? How long should our people wait? Those who voice concerns, Mr. Speaker, I truly believe only voice concerns because they know it is good, they know the benefits, and they know that they would have preferred it happened under a different administration, Mr. Speaker. But this is the administration that has put the pieces together, that has made the commitment and stuck to that commitment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, donor financing. The work of the Ministry of Health has been supported with the assistance of various partners, including most recently the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, Pan American Health Organization, PANCAP, and collectively these initiatives serve to strengthen the health system and support national health insurance implementation. Mr. Speaker, hospital and health service fund donations to the health sector. The Government of Grenada, the Ministry of Health, received medical and non-medical supplies estimated in excess of 1 million EC dollars. These donations, which came from Grenadians locally and in the diaspora, included some $64,000 of immunoglobulin for the treatment of Guillain-Barré, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Brazil, wheelchairs and other medical supplies from Chores, USA, and a project valued at $161,000 for 12 autoclaves and related supplies from the government of Japan under Japan's non-project grant aid for provisions. Mr. Speaker, these autoclaves will soon be installed in health facilities, and this donation of autoclaves will be distributed throughout the communities and health and hospital services, and are expected to significantly enhance the quality of services to our patients by enhancing infection control programs, Mr. Speaker. Autoclaves are expected on island December 7, 2017, and installation and training to commence shortly thereafter. This donation is significant, Mr. Speaker, as it aids in our ability to mitigate the negative effects of antimicrobial resistance, which is a matter of growing international concern and is aimed at reducing the use of antibiotics, which enhances or increases our risk to what is referred to as superbugs, or the increasing resistance to antibiotics. Mr. Speaker, St. George's University. St. George's University's annual contributions amount to approximately $720,000. The annual donation continues to be a key mechanism to support the procurement and upgrade of critical infrastructure and equipment to sustain and enhance the delivery of healthcare services through the fund. Examples for the upcoming year: new ultrasound scanner was purchased and which would be allowing the hospital services to provide enhanced diagnostic services. Mr. Speaker, this will increase the speed at which diagnosis is made. It will reduce the cost to individuals because this service was never before offered through the public system. And Mr. Speaker, it will reduce the number of bed nights, the time an individual stays in hospital to be diagnosed. So we are working with SGU for the procurement of further equipment, in particular CT scanners, and for the upgrading of our operating theatre and intensive care unit. Mr. Speaker, SGU is also occupying a portion of Phase 2, the new building, for their continued and enhanced teaching facilities. We are also working with them, Mr. Speaker, to look at increasing the number of facilities that they integrate with directly. We are looking with them in discussions, final discussions, for us to collectively or mutually build a new facility in the south of Grenada that will be open to the Grenadian public at the front door, and we'll have SGU doctors, professors, and students there doing their internship. This, Mr. Speaker, was previously something that was not done in Grenada and only done whenever possible under supervision at the General Hospital. So we're working together now with SGU, where they get enhanced teaching facilities and we get enhanced healthcare facilities to our public at large. Mr. Speaker, procurement of ambulances through the assistance from SGU and Grenlec and the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, the Government of Grenada, through the Ministry of Health, is in the process of procuring 4 new ambulances, Mr. Speaker. 2 have already arrived and 2 should be arriving within the next couple of weeks. These ambulances are expected to be deployed to bolster our emergency response within the communities and our hospital services. It also signals our intention to collaborate with key stakeholders and citizens and to establish sustainable emergency ambulatory care service in Grenada. Planning for this service is ongoing and is expected to be implemented during the first quarter of 2017. Mr. Speaker, what this means is that there will be a central facility. When someone calls for an ambulance, there's one number nationwide to call for an ambulance. There's one central location where the call is received, and at that location there is an awareness of where every single ambulance is on the island and how to direct an ambulance to a specific person in any area of Grenada, Carriacou, or Petit Martinique, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Health was successful in receiving assistance from the Maria Holder Memorial Trust to procure equipment for the pediatric ward as well, Mr. Speaker, and other vital equipment such as a portable ultrasound machine. This project is expected to materialize in early 2018. Mr. Speaker, Pan American Health Biannual Work Program. In 2016 and 2017, through technical assistance received under Pan American Health Organization Biannual Work Program, some EC $270,000 was invested in local health sector to build human resource capacity and support the delivery of services related to the management of communicable and non-communicable diseases, maternal and child health care, climate change and health systems, as well as development in disaster management and preparedness and disease surveillance. Mr. Speaker, through this fund, the Ministry of Health undertook several activities, including, but not limited to, Mr. Speaker, research. Grant funds received under this fund were used to assess program delivery in 2017, including research projects to support HIV/AIDS and rabies control. In this regard, the knowledge, attitude, and practice surveys for HIV/AIDS were conducted in Carriacou, and similar surveys were conducted to assess the rabies program in Grenada. It is expected that the result of these surveys will be used to affect targeted interventions to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of these programs and to improve the services to our clients, the public at large. Mr. Speaker, capacity building and training. The Ministry in 2017 continued to support the implementation of a comprehensive oncology care program. On the completion of the retrofit work and upgrade of the chemotherapy chamber at the General Hospital, the Ministry requested the assistance of PAHO, and with the funding provided through the same BWP fund, facilitated the training and the attachment of 2 pharmacists at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Barbados in the preparation for chemotherapy drugs for cancer patients. This investment, Mr. Speaker, in the professional development of our staff, approximately 20,000 EC dollars, is expected to enhance the service delivery of patients, to minimize the risk to the pharmacists through the utilization of new and improved techniques for the handling of chemotherapy drugs, Mr. Speaker. It also represents our commitment in optimizing the quality of care for cancer patients while supporting initiatives for the prevention and early detection to reduce mortality and morbidity of cancer in the population. Mr. Speaker, healthcare program and the support for intersectorial collaboration. Funding received from PAHO was also utilized to support many other training initiatives in the health sector. These included the building of capacity to meet country obligations with respect to international health regulations and antimicrobial resistance. Mr. Speaker, this simply increases our capacity, as we would have seen most recently. A recent example, practical example, would have been with Zika. Our ability to determine the number of cases, the first case, and to report, and not just to report to the ministry and to the public, but to report regionally and internationally on the occurrences and number of cases. This is specifically an example of where this capacity strengthening is needed. Mr. Speaker, it also was used for the expanded program for immunization, including Vaccination Week for the Americas and a vector control program for mosquito eradication. Through this same BWP fund, Mr. Speaker, financing, the ministry received assistance to support capacity building in the delivery of neonatal services and STI prevention and awareness. The Health Promotion Division received additional funding to continue targeted interventions in selected communities to address the thorny issue, but most definite needed issue in terms of needed to be addressed, of child sexual abuse. This program, which began in 2016, aims at empowering children to say no and to educate communities. It also denotes the importance of developing sustainable programs to provide care and address issues which affect the most vulnerable sectors of our population. Prevention of abuse mitigates the need to find resources to provide immediate and mental services which become necessary and sometimes long-term to address the consequences of abuse. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Health, through this fund, has partnered with the Royal Grenada Police Force to commemorate the 4th UN Global Road Safety Week as well, which was from May 8th to 18th. Through this initiative, the fund provided support in public awareness. Bumper stickers were considered, and support was also provided to the ministry for education of HIV and STI training for teachers and students in Grenada. Mr. Speaker, funding has also been secured through PAHO to support activities to commemorate the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, which is November 25th to December 10th. So, Speaker, these initiatives represent the commitment of the Ministry of Health, Social Security and International Business to support intersectorial collaboration in the services of our citizens and to the principles of health in all policies. Mr. Speaker, the collective investment in these programs was approximately 150,000 EC dollars. The European Development Fund, mainly from the European Development Fund. Budget support to the Grenada health sector of Grenada secured funding of 3.8 million euros for support to health sector through grants from the European Union or the 11th EDF. Since the signing of the finance agreement in 2017, as I was said, the tender for the Go of Medical Center went out. which is a 16,000 square foot facility. This tender was published on September 14th. The closing date for submissions of this tender was December 8th, and the planned start date for construction, as we said, is March 1st. The Ministry continues to collaborate with the European Union office in Grenada to plan and implement the package of complementary support activities incorporated into the financing agreement. So it is not just bricks and mortar, but this finance package comes with other enhancements and other commitments on our side with respect to primary health care. It is aimed at enhancing those primary health care services in Grenada and to ensure that there is oversight on all activities by the key stakeholders. Complementary support activities are expected to be completed under this funding agreement. Mr. Speaker, non-communicable disease survey and health promotion campaigns. An assessment of risk factors for chronic disease has been conducted. Development of the legislative framework for national health insurance and the institutionalization of a monitoring and evaluation system for the health sector, the strengthening of health management information systems, as well as terms of reference for the procurement of complementary services are currently being developed and are expected to be tendered in the first quarter of 2017. Mr. Speaker, smart healthcare facilities. The Eastern Caribbean Project Phase 2 from the United Kingdom Department of International Development, or DFID, in conjunction with PAHO as the executing agency. This project is funded by the government of the United Kingdom and implemented by PAHO. The primary objective of the project, Mr. Speaker, is to enhance the resilience of health facilities with respect to climate change, and in so doing incorporate into the design and operation of health facilities mechanisms to reduce their impact on the environment. Under this program, up to 5 healthcare facilities are expected to be retrofitted to withstand the impacts and hazards of such as hurricanes and earthquakes. The retrofit work will also be an upgrade of internal works and fixtures, including LED lights, low water volume fixtures, and the installation of inverter-type air conditions where air conditions exist. It is also expected that these initiatives and technologies, when implemented in these facilities, will serve to pilot or guide further investment into the healthcare center. Mr. Speaker, Princess Alice retrofit work at the Princess Alice Hospital commenced on May 22, 2017, and is expected to be completed by June 2018. The preliminary designs for the retrofit works at Hillsborough Health Center in Carriacou and Princess Alice Hospital and Medical Center stores commenced in March of 2017 and are scheduled to be completed by November 2017. Commencement of the design work for the retrofit of the Richmond home is contingent on the approval of the preliminary designs for the medical stores or central medical stores, which is expected in the month of November as well, by the end of this month. Signed contract for the retrofitting of Princess Alice Hospital between Pan American Health Organization and F.A. Jeremiah and Associates. Work commenced on July 17th, and the estimated value of the retrofit work is $800,000 US, approximately 2 million EC dollars, and the estimated duration is 7 months. Contingency and conservation training. In 2017, 24 persons trained in the preparation of contingency and conservation plans for health facilities. Contracts have also been issued effective March 20th, 2017 to 2 local companies for the completion of the inspection and preliminary design phase of retrofit work to Princess Royal Hospital and, as mentioned, Hillsborough Health Center, Mr. Speaker, as well as Monge. The total value of these contracts are $226,000 US. Mr. Mr. Speaker, to date, a total of EC 3 million has been spent on the Smart Hospital project based on contracts issued and work done by the local design teams and contractors for the design and retrofit at beneficiary health facilities. Mr. Speaker, the Global Fund. Grenada has received 125,000 EC dollars of the 500,000 US dollars the Global Fund grant received or gave to the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States through a strategic response project and implementation activities related to HIV and TB elimination in the OECS region. The project is being implemented in collaboration with the OECS Commission, and to date the project has provided training to build capacity among key stakeholders in addressing issues related to HIV management and treatment and detection and rapid testing. The overall goal, Mr. Speaker, of this project is to achieve 90-90-90 status, which is 90% of all people living with HIV will know their status, 90% of all people diagnosed with HIV infection will receive sustained antiretroviral therapy, and 90% of all people receiving antiretroviral therapy will have a viral suppression. Mr. Speaker, health services delivery. The Ministry is the primary provider of health services in the Tri-Island state and strives to optimize the available resources to offer the best quality of primary, secondary, and tertiary care to our clients. Through collaboration again with Pan American Health Organization and other partners, the Ministry continues to assess aspects of the health system and strengthen local capacity to deliver a range of healthcare services. For the period 2017, the Ministry's primary objective with respect to health services delivery were to 1, increase access to care, 2, enhance customer service, and 3, expand services to clients. Achievements with respect to these initiatives are as follows, Mr. Speaker. Primary healthcare services at community level, maternal and child healthcare services is most requested, and the Ministry continues to strengthen these services with initiatives such as breastfeeding sensitization and the establishment of perinatal information services, as well as care for child development. Mr. Speaker, psychosocial assessment tools have been used to sustain immunization coverage in excess of 95%. Grenada has and continues to receive regional accolades from Pan American Health Organization with respect to our immunization. And yes, Mr. Speaker, we need to give recognition to the frontline team that is involved in that immunization program. Mr. Speaker, in September of 2017, a review of the neonatal services in Grenada to assess the processes and procedures for the care of high-risk neonatals as part of an assessment of 29 nurses and doctors selected from the hospital and community services received in-service training in the care of high-risk neonates, and to recognize the associated factors, socioeconomic and individual health, which increase the risk for complications during pregnancy. A task force has been established to create an action plan for the implementation of the recommendations coming from that assessment. Mr. Speaker, men's health services. The Ministry continues its outreach to men to encourage this segment of our population to seek early intervention or preventative healthcare services. In this regard, the Community Health Nursing Division conducted several outreach programs in the public and private sectors for men. These included, and in particular, screening for prostate cancer, hypertension, diabetes, and HIV/AIDS. There continues to be a measured growth in the number of men accessing care through the community health services, and the Ministry encourages all males, both young and old, to be proactive in accessing healthcare services. Proprietary activities for men's health policy, Mr. Speaker. A policy to address issues related to the provisions for men's health is planned for 2018. In this regard, the Ministry completed an epidemiological profile for men in Grenada and literature review to inform the development of the policy document. The epidemiological profile indicated high incidence of alcoholism, threat of suicide, and HIV among segments of the population, and generally a low rate of screening among the population, Mr. Speaker. High being compared to what we consider as the perceived risk, not high in terms of higher than other regional or international levels, Mr. Speaker. Notwithstanding this, Mr. Speaker, there has been some improvement in prostate cancer screening, but still needs to be more. Prevention and early detection of diseases in the male population must continue to be addressed. Mr. Speaker, adolescent healthcare services. Through the community nursing services, the Health Promotion Department outreach to adolescents were conducted through health education sessions and seminars at schools and health centers. Students were engaged in discussions on issues related to STIs, updating of immunization, and vision screening. The ministry continued implementation of the school health program with visits to schools at the beginning of the academic year, September 2017. The primary healthcare district teams are expected to visit 60 schools in 2017 and 20 more, which is 20 more than the 40 schools in 2016. A total of 19 schools were visited in 2015. It is expected that in 2018, all schools on the island will be visited and students assessed to ascertain their health status with respect to oral health, anemia, obesity, and nutrition. Statistics for 2017 indicate that dental health continues to be a problem among our students. 30 to 50% for anemia, and obesity 30%, and poor nutrition 10%. These results provide the necessary data, Mr. Speaker, to guide targeted intervention for adolescent health care in the community and the implementation of the adolescent health policy. As at September 2017, a total of 40,500 clinic visits were recorded by community health services throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and pt1. This suggests a continued reliance by a large segment of the population for public sector healthcare services. Clinic visits for 2016 total 54,117. Additionally, up to September 2017, there were a total of 600 home visits and compared to 980 in 2016 for the entire year. Chronic non-communicable diseases remains the primary reason for citizens accessing healthcare in the public healthcare system. 2,576 visits to date compared to 3,833 for 2016. Mr. Speaker, various specialist clinics were offered to health centers and community hospitals, including anti- and postnatal, child health, immunization, family planning, health education and counseling, wound management, pediatric, sickle cell, dermatology, mental health screening, vision and anemia, oncology, ear, nose and throat or ENT services has also been introduced to the public, and to date approximately 2,000 clients have requested these services. A total of 98 specialist referrals have been recorded for the period. Immunization expanded program on immunization, sustaining coverage and expansion of services. This program is on track to achieve in excess of 95% immunization coverage against 9 childhood preventable diseases. Mr. Speaker, technical assistance grant from PAHO, approximately 12,000 EC dollars, is used to support the expanded program on immunization for introduction of hepatitis B birth dose vaccination and the celebration of the 40th anniversary of Vaccination Week for the Americas. Mr. Speaker, the target is 100% immunization for all babies born.
Deputy Speaker in the chair.
Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, the current immunization rate for new Hep B birth dose is 98%, Mr. Speaker. Specialist clinics in particular, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry continued the specialist outreach clinics introduced in the various subsidiary hospitals and health centers in 2017, including OBGYN, pediatrics, maxillofacial, nephrology, and ophthalmology, and general surgery. Through various specialist clinics, advanced care services were offered to the public through the General Hospital in 2017. These included, Mr. Speaker, CHORS in particular. In October, a 7-member CHORS team visited Grenada and provided specialist services in cardiology, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. The team evaluated 74 cardiac patients and provided speech therapy for 88 patients, physiotherapy for 70 patients, and occupational therapy for a further 64 patients. The total value of the services offered during this period was $154,000 US, all given free by CHORS, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry notes that this visit cannot be conducted without the assistance of the key partners, including the Ministry of Education and Human Resource Development and the Grenada Heart Foundation, the St. George's University, and the various local citizens. Mr. Speaker, Live Healthy Me. Following an agreement between the Government of Grenada and Live Healthy Me, Inc. in April of 2017, the Ministry of Health implemented the Live Healthy Me project, a pilot program to support women's health at the General Hospital and Carriacou and Petit Martinique. This project was designed, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to enhance service through organizational development and training so as to improve the quality of obstetrics and gynecology services offered to women in Grenada, and to ultimately implement a standard for patient-centered care. Through the Working Together training program, 258 healthcare professionals were trained in customer service standards, organizational structure, processes and procedures were also reviewed and documented to eliminate uncertainty in reporting structures and to standardize practice by the stakeholders in the delivery of patient care. Mr. Speaker, a series of surveys were also administered to assess the public perception of the services offered at the OBGYN ward at the General Hospital in particular. The results of this survey are expected to provide relevant data and behaviors, expectations and practice, and establish a baseline for coordinated interventions to improve patient care as we move forward. We also, through the same program, conducted visual inspection with acetic acid or VIA screening. Through the same Live Healthy Me program in January to August 2017, VIA was reintroduced to Grenada as a screening technique for the identification of precancerous lesions of the cervix. 20 health professionals nurses and doctors, Mr. Deputy Speaker, receive training in VIA screening techniques and are expected to be certified as VIA technicians. During the same period, 500 women were screened, 38 were identified and received treatment in the form of cryotherapy and surgical LEAP procedures, decreasing their risk of developing cervical cancer. An additional 8 women were diagnosed with gynecological malignancies and received surgical treatment by the visiting gynecological oncologist. Mr. Speaker, cervical cancer is a leading cause of mortality and morbidity in Grenada, and the enhanced capacity for early detection and prevention is expected to revolutionize women's health care and contribute to the decreased incidences of cervical cancer in Grenada. Mr. Speaker, also, I intend to push forward and would like to mention here in this House for the immunization or vaccination with respect to HPV. The team at the Ministry of Health is extremely supportive on this initiative, and with a combination of the screening and vaccination, it is possible, Mr. Speaker, within a 3 to 5 year period to literally eliminate the occurrence of cervical cancer in Grenada. Mr. Speaker, capacity building and continuing education. Health professionals were engaged over the period May 22nd to 26th in a series of training sessions accumulating 252 accredited hours of continued medical education. And in obstetrical emergency training, sorry Mr. Deputy Speaker, the team in this program, which highlights the importance of healthcare professionals working as a team to serve patient needs and to enhance performance and patient safety. Obstetrical emergency topics covered during the training included electronic fetal heart rate monitoring, postpartum hemorrhaging, eclampsia, and other hypertensive emergencies. And Mr. Speaker, in this regard, Grenada is thought to be the first island in the Caribbean to introduce Team STEPS, a program to enhance patient care. Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to comment at this point in time that while some of our healthcare providers embrace this opportunity and engage in the training fully, we have to be honest, and I must note that some did not. And as a result, the entire team is not coordinated, and those who did not embrace this training, no matter how qualified or experienced they were previously, are doing a disservice to the public at large. When the Ministry of Health and the government finds an opportunity through a recognition of a shortfall in services being offered anywhere in our health sector, I think it is necessary and should be mandatory that all involved in the provision of that service embrace the training, be it if they think it is retraining. It is a fundamental principle as a healthcare provider, doctor or nurse, for retraining and continued education. And it is unacceptable, Mr. Speaker, to have some members of our team bringing the rest down by not fully participating in any form of the training that we provide. Mr. Speaker, human resource for health. Mr. Speaker, the right mix and quantity and competencies of healthcare professionals are critical to the delivery of consistent, patient-centered care. During the year under review, the Ministry continued to engage stakeholders to ensure that adequate staff was available at healthcare facilities across the state. In this regard, the following, Mr. Speaker, noted. Staff recruitment. The Ministry continues to ensure the availability of appropriate specialist services to the public, including through the technical cooperation agreement with the Republic of Cuba, specialist care provided by the medical professionals from Cuba to strengthen and improve the critical areas of service, including pathology, general surgery, and maxillofacial surgery, anesthesiology, oncology, psychiatry, ophthalmology, orthopedics, obstetrics, and gynecology. Mr. Speaker, services have also been provided to enhance the work of the biomedical department of the General Hospital. The Ministry has agreed to renew the technical, well, we have, Mr. Speaker, renewed the technical cooperation agreement between the Republic of Cuba and Grenada to further strengthen the relationship and cooperation between our two countries. Mr. Speaker, regularization of nurses. In collaboration with GrenCase, the Ministry of Health retained a number of registered nurses and nursing assistants to ensure the appropriate quantity of nursing staff are available to provide services to the public. Additionally, the agreement has been reached for the regularization of nurses. This process, which commenced in 2017, is expected to continue through 2018. So any and all improvements in our healthcare in Grenada starts with the people involved. On this, Mr. Speaker, I wish to say that there are persons out there providing yeoman service, persons who too often don't get the recognition they deserve. And yes, the remuneration as well. But more importantly, the recognition. Persons for whom it is not about the money, but while not about the money, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they do need to get on with their lives. They have families to look after and ambitions like the rest of us. Mr. Deputy Speaker, these persons deserve to have opportunities afforded to us like those elsewhere in our society. So, Deputy Speaker, I am speaking of the issue of regularization. The Ministry has aggressively embarked on a process of regularization of nurses as allowed based on existing vacancies. So, Deputy Speaker, while I support and understand the need for this initiative, I wish to offer the following observation. Fact: if a qualified nurse were working with a private institution, the financial institutions that lend money would accept a job letter or a pay slip and offer that person a 5, 10, or 15-year loan. But if that person works with the government of Grenada, I am told, Mr. Speaker, that the financial institutions do not offer a loan unless the person can produce a contract or proof of tenure within the public service. So if a pay slip comes from the government, then there is a need for a contract or tenure of service with the Public Service Commission. But if a pay slip comes from the private sector, a job letter would suffice. Mr. Speaker, is it possible that this is unconstitutional to treat unequally qualified persons, or to treat equally qualified persons differently based on their employer? Is this possibly discrimination, Mr. Speaker? I will continue to push ahead with the regularization initiative, but I would like to address this anomaly as well. Mr. Speaker, investment in HR development. 7 practitioners continue postgraduate studies in various fields in Cuba and the Republic of China, in fields of OBGYN, pediatrics, pathology, anesthesiology, internal medicine, ophthalmology, epidemiology, and hygiene. These specialists are scheduled to return to Grenada over the period 2018 to 2019. Mr. Speaker, Grenada continues, through the government and through our friendly governments and the St. George's University to make significant sacrifice in placing resources that could be used elsewhere to educate Grenadians in need by giving a scholarship, and also giving scholarships in specific areas that fit with succession planning, that fit with the needs, the medical needs of our society. Mr. Deputy Speaker, like most of us here in this room, I understand national service and giving back to one's country, and following the principle of to whom much is given, much is expected. But Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue to remain silent. I cannot continue to remain silent on the individuals who have received a scholarship from the state at great cost of the state, who have been given that opportunity, and then on completion of their studies do not see it fit to give back national service, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if the government of Grenada and the government of Cuba, or the government of Grenada and SGU, have made the sacrifice to educate a doctor, and that doctor on completion, whether bonded or not, and if not bonded, it would be through some loophole that they may have exploited, or a failing on the Ministry of Education with respect to the bonding. Regardless, no one in their right mind can say that they have received a scholarship from a developing country like Grenada in medicine to the tune of $250,000 to $500,000 and believe in their right mind that they owe nothing to the government, that they can walk away. Mr. Speaker, this has to be addressed. They need to come to terms with their own conscience. But while we continue to serve the people, we need to look at the way that we choose individuals who receive these scholarships and make sure that individuals who receive these scholarships understand what national service is, Mr. Speaker. I can speak to it. I never received a scholarship from this government, but I understand what national service is. And therefore, those who have received scholarships should understand what national service is, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with respect to international business, Mr. Speaker, international business, the ministry successfully participated in Expo Astana in Kazakhstan, where various inquiries were made into Grenada. We sent a team of 3 persons there for the period of the Expo. And Grenada was promoted as a tourist and investment destination. Currently, Mr. Speaker, there are persons with confirmed travel itineraries to travel to Grenada for our Chocolate Festival in April and for August Summer Festival coming out of our representation there in Astana, as well as between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of both countries, the draft of a visa waiver to facilitate further travel. Mr. Speaker, Expo 2020 in the United Arab Emirates, Dubai is making a grant fund available to NGOs, government and private sector entrepreneurs and youths for various projects in keeping with the theme and sub-theme of the Expo. Ministry of International Business has publicized that information, and it is available to any and all who would like to participate. Already, one institution in Grenada has been awarded $100,000 US based on a project that they submitted through GIDC for branding or rebranding in Grenada for their projects. So the opportunities exist there for Grenadian entities, for Grenadian students in particular, to apply for assistance between now and Expo 2020 funded by United Arab Emirates. Mr. Speaker, we continue to assist individuals and companies with their project proposals. As a matter of fact, the Ministry is prepared to make its human resource available to institutions that wish to submit project proposals to the Expo 2020. Mr. Speaker, the other aspect of international business has been the doing business ranking. And Mr. Speaker, again, Grenada has fallen in its doing business ranking. Facts are the facts. In 2017, between 2016 and 2017, we engaged in education of those who do the surveys to educate them as to the improvements that were made within the various sectors that would improve our doing business ranking. However, it is obvious, Mr. Speaker, that initiative needs to be enhanced, and that was not enough. Mr. Speaker, based on our ranking and our analysis of the ranking, the improvements that need to be made within works with respect to permits, building permits, and with legal affairs, with respect to contracts and judgments and registration of companies. So we have assembled a team based on information, a specific team to address the specific areas of improvement for the doing business ranking, Mr. Speaker. It is a continuous effort. It is one that one never rests on, and it is not just simply a mission of improving the way business is done, but to improve faster than other regional services. So this is our commitment and our initiative for 2018 through the Ministry of International Business, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with respect to my constituency, Mr. Speaker, I have had the opportunity, humble but proud opportunity, to have served the people of the town of St. George in my capacity as parliamentary representative. But Mr. Speaker, while I'm going to list the various projects that have been done, the various concrete work, so to speak, that which you can touch, and to list a few, Mr. Speaker, just to summarize. In Dabo, over 800 feet of roads and walls and drains. In River Road, Mr. Speaker, over 1,300 feet of roads, walls, drains, etc. Tempe, 280 feet. Carenage, 100 feet of concrete road and 8 grills. Williamson Road, 80 feet of concrete and 100 feet of a concrete box drain. Mount Rush, over 300 feet of walls, drains, and roads or pathways, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is the tangible. But the most pleasing part of being the representative is the intangible, making a difference in the lives of the people. Working with the team, having the team embrace a united principle. A principle, Mr. Deputy Speaker, which is that we serve all in the community. That it is not of value to mention all of this work being done if we cannot also say that the work was done impartial and given to those who were capable regardless of their political affiliations, Mr. Speaker. That in the town of St. George, immediately after an election, it matters not how you voted. What is more important is whether you have a need, Mr. Speaker. That principle has been embraced And as I move on from the town of St. George, Mr. Speaker, if I am to be remembered for anything, it would be that. Not the amount of work, but the principle of fairness, the principle of serving those who are in need, the principle of giving opportunities to those who need it, the principle of being colorblind with respect to the politics. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the people of the town of St. George for the trust they placed in me, the cooperation I received from them, and the mutual benefit